of the Board of Directors for Housing Development Partners, or HDP. It's 9:01 on June 24th, 2022, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the HDP Board. The process we are using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, added by Assembly Bill 364. This allows of teleconferencing and provides the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on June 21st, 2022 declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the city of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, staff, and general counsel participating by video. Now, for the record, I will ask each board member to indicate your presence as I say your name. Gary Gramling. Gary?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I'm here.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Present.
And Mitch Mitchell. Not yet present. And Justine Nielsen, who I understand is out of the country and won't be joining us today. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's HDP board meeting included a link to the webpage for Housing Development Partners on the San Diego Housing Commission's website. The public can access the live streaming for today's meeting on that webpage. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form and a toll-free phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted on Housing Development Partners website, www.hdpartners.org on June 16th, 2022. The agenda and the public comment form explain that written comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they are submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, Thursday, June 23rd. Written non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 o'clock this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free number that is included on the agendas. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live video streaming available through the HDP webpage on the Housing Commission's website at www.sdhc.org. Under the About Us menu, select Housing Development Partners to access this webpage. Again, today's agendas also include a link to the webpage where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that is different from the item currently being considered, they will be asked to hang up and call back into the meeting at the correct time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single agenda item, comments might be limited to 1 minute each. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments to the HDP board. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue to provide non-agenda public comments. We will keep the line open for at least 90 seconds to allow time for members of the public to call in. The number again is 833-610-2513. I'm going to ask Susie Kaywood, who is monitoring the phone queue, to let us know when this time has passed and if we have any callers at that time. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments about topics that are not on today's agenda, but involve a subject within the area of responsibility for the HDP board. The board cannot take action on non-agenda public comments. The number again is 833-610-2513. Susie, at this time, do we have any callers for non-agenda public comment?
No callers at this time, about 50 seconds left on the clock.
Thank you, Susie. And I see we have Mitch Mitchell present with us.
Good morning. You do.
Good morning, Commissioner Mitchell.
Concludes our time and there are no callers at this moment.
That was a long 50 seconds. All right, so we're gonna get to board member comments now. Do any board members have any comments this morning? Seeing none, thank you. I have a few comments, a few updates to provide to the board. First having to do with West Park Inn and Mariners Village. Our West Park Inn and Mariner Village developments have achieved all of their property stabilization requirements. Stabilization requirements vary based on the lender, but generally involve an occupancy or lease-up threshold and a level of revenue relative to total expenses for a set period of time after construction is complete. West Park and Mariners Village are both awaiting final certification from the California Tax Credit Allocation Committee. West Park Inn is in the final stages of that process, and Mariners Village will be beginning that process in July. It takes about a year to complete that certification. After certification, staff will be able to request the final installment of the developer fee for the project. You'll recall that West Park Inn consists of 46 permanent affordable housing units in Bankers Hill for people who experienced homelessness and 1 manager's unit. Mariners Village provides 170 affordable housing units in the Skyline neighborhood for families with low income and has 2 unrestricted manager's units. The Quality Inn development completed its property stabilization requirements in May. This will allow for the release of the lender's rental achievement reserve. This is about $2.3 million that will fund the installation of a solar system, the property's operating reserve, the property's security needs in the years ahead, and the final installment of the developer fee. For the Casa Colina property, staff has procured MW Steel Group to serve as the rehabilitation project's architect and design team lead. MW Steel Group previously served as the architect for HDP's Island Village apartments. The design team is working towards the creation of the as-built survey drawings and schematic scope development for the Casa Colina project. Staff also continue to work on the process to ask the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for an increase in the project-based voucher rent subsidy for this property. At Casa Colina, the housing assistance payment contract is with HUD directly, not with the Housing Commission. Casa Colina consists of 75 affordable rental apartments for seniors in the Colina del Sol neighborhood in the Mid-City area. The HDP board approved the pre-development budget for Casa Colina last October. HDP acquired and rehabbed the property in 2004, and in 2019, the property reached its 15-year mark. Tax credit investor exited at that time, and HDP acquired their interest in the partnership. And then about our HDU development program, Housing Development Partners worked with the Housing Commission to construct detached accessory dwelling units in the available yard space at 5 single-family homes that HDP owns in the Nestor community in South Bay. This development pilot program included the creation of permit-ready templates that would be made available for use by interested homeowners in the city of San Diego at no cost to them. The permit-ready plan templates are undergoing final revisions for city approval and are anticipated to be approved for the public use this summer. When they're ready, they will be posted on the Housing Commission's website at www.sdhc.org/ADU. That website also includes a report of lessons learned through the development pilot program to help other homeowners go through the process of building an ADU. And finally, I have 2 staff updates for the board. First, please join me in congratulating Josh Hoffman. He's been promoted to Interim Vice President of Development. Congratulations, Josh. Josh has excelled in this position as the development director at HDP. And in 2020, he was recognized with a San Diego Housing Commission CEO Award of Excellence for his great work. He's now going to take on more oversight of the development activities for HDP. And in addition, please join me in welcoming Alfonso Trujillo as HDP's new Director of Asset Management. I practiced that and still got it wrong. Alfonso, he started working at HDP about 3 weeks ago. His previous experience includes serving as the Director of Property Management for the Cesar Chavez Foundation, the Vice President of Property Management and Leasing for Caprate Commercial, and a Director of Asset and Property Management for the Turn Family Trust. Welcome, Alfonso. Great to have you. And that concludes my update for this morning. Do the board members have any questions?
No, but congratulations to everybody. Alfonso, welcome. Very nice to see you.
Yep.
Thought I recognized your name, but possibly from the previous roles.
All right, next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 10th, 2021. The phone line is now open for public comments about the minutes. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We will keep the line open for 90 seconds to allow time for members of the public to call in. No written public comments were submitted regarding the minutes. And again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. Before we take any public comments, I'll note for the record 2 corrections to the minutes. First, the footer at the bottom of the page for the minutes will be updated to reflect the meeting date of December 10th, 2021. In addition, the signature page will reflect that I will sign the final approved minutes as the president of the board instead of Mr. Gentry, whose name appears on the minutes that were distributed to the board. And so now I'll ask Susie, do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers. 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
That concludes our time, and we do not have any callers at this moment.
Thank you, Susie. So that concludes the public comment for the minutes. Do any board members wish to make any additional changes to the minutes, or do I have a motion to approve the minutes with the changes I mentioned?
I was not present for the meeting, so I would just make that one statement.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. We have a motion by Commissioner Benvenuto and a second by Commissioner Gramling. I should say, let me start over again. We have a motion by Board Member Benvenuto and a second by Board Member Gramling to approve the minutes from December 10th, 2021. For the record, I will ask each board member to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Gary Gramling.
Yeah, vote to approve.
Stephanie Benvenuto
Yes.
and Mitch Mitchell abstains. Board members Benvenuto and Gramling have voted in favor of the motion. Board member Mitchell has abstained and there are no opposed. And I also vote in favor of the motion, which carries by a vote of 3-0. This morning for our consent agenda, I am recommending that items 100, 101, and 102 be placed on the consent agenda. Item 100 is the approval of the appointment of board members. Item 101 is the election of HDP's Treasurer, Chief Financial Officer. And item 102 is the election of the members of the HDP Board's Audit Committee. The phone line is now open for public comment about items 100, 101, and 102. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. No written public comments were submitted regarding these 3 items. Again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. Susie, do we have any callers at this time?
No callers at this time. 1 minute left.
Thank you.
That concludes our time.
Thank you. So that concludes the public comment period for items 100, 101, and 102. Do board members have any comments about these items, or do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a question about
Gramling
number
has a question.
102. The audit committee.
I'm sorry, Gary, we're not able to hear you well, or is it just me?
Yeah, he has a question about item number 2, the audit committee. Agenda item about the audit committee.
Okay.
Okay, and my only question is, when does that term actually begin? Because this would be the audit for our current fiscal year or for the previous one.
Sukat, do you have an answer to that question?
Yeah, I'm gonna have Julie answer it, but it's the meeting, it'll be for the December one, but Julie, can you go ahead and, Julie Conserva,
Yeah.
can you answer the question?
Yes, so it'll be for the 2021 audit. And we expect that meeting to be probably towards the end of July. But that will be for the last year's audit, yes. And engagement of the auditors for this fiscal year, so for 2022.
Does that answer your question, Gary?
Yes, it does.
All right, I did hear a motion from board member Mitchell. Did I hear a second, or did I get a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion by board member Mitchell and a second by board member Gramling to approve the consent agenda. For the record, I'll ask each board member to say your vote on the motion when I state your name. Gary Gramling,
Yes,
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
So we have board member Gramling, Benvenuto, and Mitchell have voted in favor of the motion, and none are opposed. I also vote in favor of the motion, and that carries by a vote of 4-0. We will now proceed with the remaining items on our agenda today. The PowerPoint presentations were emailed to board members yesterday and are posted on the HDP's website. Item 103 is the Housing Development Partners Security Assessment. The phone line is now open for public comment about item 103. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. No written public comments were submitted regarding this item. Again, the number to call is 833-610-2513, and we'll take public comment after the staff presentation. The Vice President of Asset Management, Emmanuel Ariano, will be presenting this item, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. Board, the item before you today is for your approval of a security assessment of HDP properties. Next slide. HDP owns 25 affordable rental housing properties, totaling more than 1,700 units. The HDP real estate portfolio consists of multifamily housing properties, single-room occupancy and studios, single-family homes, and accessory dwelling units. These properties provide affordable housing for seniors, families, workers, and special needs households. Next slide. In October 2021, HDP issued a request for proposal, or RFP, to select a vendor to perform a security assessment on some of its real estate assets. The RFP was published on both HDP's and the City of San Diego's Planet Bids vendor portals. At the closing of the RFP, 11 proposals were received and were then evaluated by a review committee. Next slide. The review committee identified Delta V Group as the most responsive and qualified candidate to conduct the security assessment. Delta V's proposal would provide for the security assessment of 10 HDP properties at a total cost of $110,200. Properties were selected for a security assessment based on the population they serve, their location, and activity observed at the property. This project also focuses on properties that provide permanent housing with supportive services for households that previously experienced homelessness. If the board approves the action before you today, this project is anticipated to start July 1 and is expected to be completed by June of next year. Next slide. I'm sorry, I think I have the slides backwards. We can go back, Gafford, to the previous one. Apologies for that. Delta V Group is a San Diego-based small business and is also a disabled veteran-owned enterprise. Delta V experience performing safety assessment, consultation, and analysis. It goes for many years. Their prior work includes assessment of homelessness shelter programs in the city of San Diego, including the city's bridge shelters. Next slide. I went over that a little bit earlier. Thank you. This slide here shows the 10 HDP properties that Delta V would assess. Next slide, please. HDP reserves would fund the cost for the security assessment project, as shown on this slide. Next slide. Staff recommends that the HDP board take the action shown on this slide and in the staff report. Next slide. This concludes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Emmanuel. We'll now take any public comments from callers on this item. Do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers at this time.
Thank you, Susie. So this concludes the public comment period for item 103. Board members, do you have any questions or comments on this item?
Yeah, I looked at the presentation and all the properties, and I just this is my first meeting, and so it all looks fine, but in the agreement, it says that the 110,200 for the security assessment of the 10 properties. I'm assuming this is just a normal protocol we go through for a package of properties like this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you mean by normal protocol, but if this answers your question, we're actually doing a similar engagement on the Housing Commission portfolio. So okay. This follows suit. So yeah, I mean, it will be the same protocol as we've done with.
Okay. That's why I just want to make sure. So this is same as the Housing Commission standard process. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you.
As I went through the packet, we had no information really other than the brief summary on the slide that you just showed us regarding the background of Delta. When were they founded?
If I recall correctly, they were about 23 years ago.
Really?
So they've been in operations for about 23 years. We've on the Housing Commission side, we've worked with them on prior engagements related to the homeless shelter, the bridge shelter, and the Path and Father Joe's.
Okay. And on the security assessment, what type of security are we looking at? Actual physical security and how to improve that, or what? Great
question. So they'll be going to be looking at each asset from a comprehensive standpoint, looking at the physical components of the property, and such as physical security, fencing, cameras, lighting, but also other items such as processes, right? Do we have presence of security on site? What are the protocols for checking in, checking out? Do we keep records of the vehicles on site? Are there gates installed? So things of that nature, so that they're taking a comprehensive look on anything, including landscape, right? Of things that can enhance the security of the property. So making sure that we're doing everything that we can. Property specific, of course.
Thank you. I have no more questions.
I had just one quick one. Could the outcomes of this security study impact insurance rates or anything? I mean, if we were to uncover anything possibly very good or possibly very concerning, what would that sort of rollover look like, if at all?
Great question. At this point, we don't anticipate that to impact our insurance rates. Insurance, it is subject to how the market bears, and we know it's been a challenging market for the insurance companies. However, where we see a potential impact would be that we might learn of opportunities where we might need the funding, right, to implement those. Perhaps, they recommend having additional security cameras or do an upgrade to the lighting system. That might trigger some actions in that regard. At this point, we don't anticipate the findings to impact our insurance related to that, our insurance cost.
Thank you.
And I might just add to that, excellent answer, Emmanuel, but there's no external influence causing us to do this security assessment. This is entirely for our information to make sure that our properties are as secure as possible and our tenants are safe. All right. Any other questions or comments from our board members? Or do we have a motion on this item?
I'll make the
So moved.
motion. Second.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
So we have a motion by Board Member Mitchell and a second by Board Member Benvenuto for approval of item 103. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Gramley,
Yes,
Stephanie Benvenuto,
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell,
Aye.
and I too vote in favor of the motion, and that carries by a vote of 4-0. The next item is item 104 regarding the New Palace Hotel tenant improvements. The phone line is now open for public comment about item 104. Please call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. No written public comments were submitted regarding this item. Again, the number to call is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. Interim Vice President of Development, Josh Hoffman, will be presenting this item, and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning. Staff is seeking approval of the action items detailed in the board report, more specifically to provide approval of the project funding from HDP reserves and authorization to execute documents related to the project's completion. Requested approvals will enable HDP to prepare and advance construction documents and construct tenant improvements in a pair of vacant commercial lease spaces at the New Palace Hotel property in order to make them more attractive to potential tenants. Next slide, please. The New Palace Hotel is located at 1814 Fifth Avenue in the Bakersfield neighborhood of San Diego. The property was acquired by HDP in 2016 and consists of 79 affordable rental housing units for seniors and one manager's unit. Additionally, the property includes 2 vacant unimproved commercial lease spaces. Next slide, please. In 2018, HDP completed a tax credit finance renovation of the property. These funds were restricted for use on residential and residential serving spaces only, and use of the funds for improvement of the commercial spaces was not permitted. The underwriting requirements of the project's tax credit investor, however, Boston Financial, included annual rental income from the commercial spaces and anticipated that the property would start earning this income in 2020. Boston Financial is currently withholding the final equity installment payment of $573,295 until these requirements are either satisfied or a plan to market and improve the spaces is in place. Next slide, please. The north commercial space encompasses 1,039 square feet of unimproved cold shell. With the exception of shared vestibule into a trash room, there is no shared access with the residential portion of the structure. The south commercial space encompasses a split level plan of 869 square feet and includes only modest improvements remaining from previous use as a construction office for the prior renovation effort. These improvements consist of a unisex restroom and a small office style kitchenette consisting of a countertop, cabinetry, and sink. There's no shared access with the residential portion of the structure from this space. Additionally, there's no shared access between the 2 commercial spaces. It is important to note that due to this general lack of direct access, differences in finished floor heights relative to the primary residential portion of the structure, as well as the constraints of a significantly sloping site and the property's existing non-conforming status relative to its current zoning, that these spaces could not be easily integrated into the primary structure and converted to additional residential units without significant investment in design, entitlements, and structural modifications. These efforts were deemed prohibitive during the planning and budgeting for the tax credit renovation effort. Next slide, please. December of 2021, HDP entered into a contract with Strong Commercial Real Estate to identify potential tenants. Since executing the listing agreement, interest to lease the spaces in their unimproved state has not materialized. The broker advised HDP to perform capital improvements to make the spaces more desirable. The broker's recommendations include the installation of heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment, electrical distribution, acoustic ceilings, finished flooring, paint, and the addition of a dedicated bathroom, kitchenette, and offices in the north space. This work will also require reconfiguration of the entries of each space to make them compliant with current accessibility regulations as well as trigger improvements to the building's fire sprinkler and alarm systems to comply with recent city code changes. Based on a review of comparable commercial properties in the area, the broker anticipates rents of approximately $2 per square foot plus utilities once improved. On March 30th, 2022, staff issued a request for proposals, or RFP, to obtain design build proposals using the broker's recommendations as the basis for scope of work to be performed by a design build contractor. At closing on May 9th, 2022, 2 proposals were received, and LDCO was identified as the most responsive and qualified bidder based on the selection criteria in the RFP. HDP has successfully worked with LDCO on several recent projects, including the Quality Inn renovation, Village North Seniors, and the construction of the 5 accessory dwelling units. Next slide, please. Staff requests approval of the budget included in this report, which outlines expenditures required to design and construct the tenant improvements. Staff is recommending that HDP advance the partnership these funds from HDP reserves on terms to be coordinated with Boston Financial. The requested budget for the effort is $627,600, which includes an owner's contingency of approximately 15% to cover any unexpected items. On approval and contract execution, staff will work with LDCO to design, permit, and construct the improvements for both spaces. Contractor's proposed schedule anticipates a month-long design process and submittal to the City of San Diego Development Services Department for building permit approvals upon design completion. Recent experience with city review processes points to extended timelines for routine approvals, but are estimated by the contractor here to be complete in approximately 4 months. Improvements will be complete within 90 days following issuance of city permits and the notice proceeding. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the HDP Board of Directors take the following actions. Authorize funding of up to $627,600 from HDP reserves to HDP New Palace LP for the design and construction of the New Palace Hotel lease space tenant improvements. Authorize HDP's Executive Vice President or designee to execute all documents and instruments that are necessary and are appropriate to implement these approvals. The form approved by HDP's legal counsel and take such actions as are necessary and or appropriate to implement these approvals. Next slide, please. Approve the resolution prepared by HDP's legal counsel relating to the action items listed above, and find that foregoing transactions are just and reasonable as to HDP for purposes of California Corporation Code Section 5234 to the extent that they involve the San Diego Housing Commission. Next slide, please. That concludes our presentation, and we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Josh. We'll now take any public comments from callers on this item. Do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers at this time.
Thank you, Susie. So this concludes the public comment period for item 104. Board members, do you have any questions or comments at this time?
Yes. Josh, has the broker given us any real target or any idea as to what market we're going to be able to hit with these properties once they're rehab?
I'll defer to Emmanuel for that response.
Sure. Thank you. Just I can answer that. They gave us a general idea based on what type of business we see in the neighborhood. These spaces have been vacant for about 30 years. So we haven't had a business there for quite a while, but we anticipate an office type like of tenant, maybe a nonprofit per se, but it would be a regular administrative office type of a business.
One other quick question. I loved the asterisk with the DSD timeline shout out. In my day job, I spend a lot of time noodling over their timelines. And so one, I'm glad that we're being really realistic about that. But two, I'm also under the impression, and I might be wrong, but maybe staff would want to check in on this or direct LDCO to check. There should be a TI self-certification coming online through DSD. And I've heard that it could be applicable to larger projects. So if that's the case, I mean, it may slow down some of the front end, but it could really speed up on that back end and you could end up ahead of schedule if that is true. So just a suggestion to check in with DSD leadership and make sure we're not missing any opportunities to get things in a more timely fashion, because I know that can be a huge cost. But with the idea of the, and I'm sure you have thought about this, so I'm just kind of curious to learn. No, actually, let me back up. One other question. What is a cold shell and a hard shell?
So a cold shell is basically unimproved void space. So you see this quite frequently on affordable housing projects where there's a mixed use component. Basically the subsidy for the affordable housing can't touch the commercial space. So essentially all that can build is structure and shell. And so when these were originally built 30 years ago and have been vacant ever since, there were no improvements inside, no heating, no air conditioning, no finished flooring, basically exposed piping everywhere. And it's up to the lessor or the leaser in this case to improve the space. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why they've been vacant for 30 years. We did benefit on that south space when the previous rehab contractor, in lieu of renting a job trailer, basically parked on site and provided us with some permitted improvements free of charge. But that didn't extend all the way across the whole property. And it is worth noting that those improvements are quite modest and we're sort of done with remnants from previous projects. So they're definitely in need of a polish, if nothing else.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. I just thought maybe that term, I
Yeah.
had a lot of
So
guesses about what it could mean, but that's much more applicable. Thank you. And so on that note then, 30 years of absentee or 30 years of nothing there, an office-ish client, are there going to be improvements made for kind of connectivity issues too? So making sure that it's desirable as far as broadband and tech or any of that? How do we prepare for that?
There is a electrical and communications component to the scope here to improve those spaces. So as is, the south spaces do have, I believe, telephone and communications installed due to the previous presence of the contractor. The north space, that will be added. So as it stands right now, the north space is one kind of long, narrow void space. And we'll be building the conference room and 2 private offices within there, as well as the associated improvements for an office tenant.
Great, thank you. Very exciting. I'm happy to make a motion, but I don't know if Commissioner Mitchell or
No, I think one of the questions you asked was similar to what I have, but I don't have any further questions. I guess the main thing I was thinking is, why it's taken so long to make the improvements to get it filled.
The early rehab effort, when HDP acquired it, the focus was really on acquiring and preserving the asset. So it was, it's been an SRO since construction, but it was operating in the red, and I think Emily can speak to that more intelligently than I can. But that tax credit effort was really trying to, again, preserve and enhance the asset and secure it as affordable for an additional 55 plus years, with the addition of kitchenettes to make each unit more habitable. And so there was this, during that effort anyway, there was a very fine line that we had to tread where, I think I mentioned before, the property is existing non-conforming relative to its current zoning. So that level of density with no parking under a flight path would be basically impossible to build today. And so there's a lot of things that were sort of allowed to stay in place, sort of grandfathered in, for lack of a better term. And the resources that were required to add those kitchenettes to every unit took up most of the budget for the project that was available. So the idea of having any residual left on that point was not only not permitted for the sources that we were using, but it was not the focus of the initial effort. I think the primary point was sort of bringing the population, the property back into the black and securing the housing portion first, and kind of hoping that under our management, we'd be able to find somebody to take them in their current form. That clearly hasn't materialized for a variety of reasons.
Okay.
Well, and if I may, just for the benefit of the public, I want to make it clear that the vast majority of those 30 years of unimprovements, the Housing Commission did not own the property. Just for the benefit of the public. So does any of the board members have any other questions, comments? I have a motion from Board Member Benvenuto. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a second from Board Member Mitchell. As I say your name, please state your vote on the motion. Gary Gramley.
Aye.
Stephanie Benvenuto.
Aye.
Mitch Mitchell.
Aye.
So I have board members Gramling, Benvenuto, Mitchell having voted in favor of the motion and none are opposed. I too vote in favor of the motion and that carries by a vote of 4-0. Well, thank you very much to all of our board members for joining us. This will conclude our board meeting today and the meeting is adjourned at 9:42 a.m. Thanks again.
Thank
You
you.
did a wonderful job with the speeches, Jeff.
Wonderful.
I've learned from the best. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
All
Have
right,
a good
take care.
weekend.
Have a good weekend.